Hello, my name is Kasey Harrison. I am the head speech and debate coach at Norman High School, and this is the first video of our attempt at the Oklahoma Debate Project. Today, what I'd like to do is just sort of go over the November-December Lincoln Douglas topic, which is resolve the right to be forgotten from internet searches ought to be a civil right. So what I basically just want to do is talk about the right to be forgotten and sort of the history behind it, and maybe at the end give you guys some resources that you could start looking on your own. So the right to be forgotten stems from the Mario Costeja Gonzalez case in Spain. This was a guy who had a lot of money issues, and he was forced to auction off a lot of his property, and when he finally settled all of his money issues, what he wanted was Google to remove any and all references to his money problems in the first place. And what happened then was he sued Google. It went to higher courts, and it ended up in the European Court of Justice, which is sort of like the EU's Supreme Court. And they ruled that all links on Google in reference to Mr. Gonzalez needed to be taken down, at least in reference to Mr. Gonzalez's money issues, needed to be taken down, and that they had to kind of do that on their own. Google had to do that on their own. So that is where this sort of right to be forgotten, that's the court case that is often referenced as precedent for it. So the right to be forgotten exists in Europe and in Argentina, I believe. So the problem with it is that it's basically on the search engines to govern it. It's on Google, it's on Bing to make those deletions happen. And as of August of this year, Google had received over 30 million deletion requests, and that's from people just wanting their name deleted from Google, or at least their name in reference to certain things. They wanted that deleted from Google. And so one of the issues with the right to be forgotten is that the courts in Europe, the courts in Argentina, have put it off on the search engines to actually monitor the people's right to be forgotten. One of the reasons, when I was reading some stuff that said that it works in Europe, that it probably would not work in the United States, is because in Europe the right to privacy takes precedence over the right to free speech and the freedom of the press. So that is one of the reasons why it really does work in Europe, is that in the hierarchy of rights, the right to privacy takes precedence over free speech and freedom of the press. And in the United States, obviously, our Bill of Rights guarantees free press, guarantees free speech, and the right to privacy, that's one of those things that's often debated. But that's basically where it comes into play in the United States, and the right to be forgotten is it's a free speech or a freedom of the press question. Regarding freedom of the press, there is concern that anyone who is looking towards a political career in the future, or anyone who's a public figure, could have things deleted about their past, things that it's probably the electorate's right to know. And if we allow the right to be forgotten to be an inalienable right, that is a civil right in the United States, that we don't allow ourselves the most information about the electorate that we could have. A reason why it's probably very useful, though, that it would be very useful in the United States, is because it makes it very difficult in the status quo for people to sort of escape their criminal records. And when I say that, obviously when you fill out a job application, if you have a felony charge, that has to be logged. But the bigger concern is that those people who have left a criminal career in the past. They're attempting to move on. They're attempting to lead lives that are to the betterment of society. And unfortunately, because anytime you type their name into a Google search or a Bing search, it's going to come back that they had an arrest. They had a warrant out for their arrest. They were charged with a felony, maybe not convicted of, but charged with a felony. It makes it really difficult for people to leave that behind, and with the right to be forgotten, then it would be much easier for that to take place. So there's that. Another thing that's going to come up that I think would come up would be copyright infringement. However, in the United States, the government can force things to be taken down off the internet for copyright infringement based on the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. This is the act that forces users on YouTube or Facebook or anything else, if you put something that's copyrighted up on those sites, then they can be deleted and that's YouTube's job or that's Facebook's job, whoever, because that's copyrighted material. Same thing works with songs, photographs, anything like that. If they're copyrighted, they can be taken down. However, if they're not copyrighted, then we get into a different place again with the right to be forgotten. And where you get into that is with the recent iCloud phone hack or hacks that were done on like Jennifer Lawrence, Kate Upton, their phones and their clouds of their personal pictures that were hacked and then released widely. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act doesn't apply to those because those are not copyrighted materials. They are the personal property of those people, but that's not copyrighted materials. Same thing goes with revenge porn. President Obama over the summer was dealing a lot with attempting to pass legislation that outlawed revenge porn, but unfortunately, same thing, it does not fall under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. But with the right to be forgotten, maybe it could become a thing of the past. If someone could just, let Google know that their name had to be deleted from something, and then Google would pull that thing off of the internet. Obviously, that's something that would benefit a lot of people. Regarding some places where you could probably start reading some literature. The first place I'd go to is an article in the New Yorker called The Solace of Oblivion. It really lays out the Gonzalez case in Spain, as well as some other cases in the United States. And it's a really great place to start. It's a really well-written article. It provides a lot of really great information. Also, there is a book called Delete, The Virtue of Forgetting in a Digital Age, and that is by Victor Meyer-Schonberger. Meyer-Schonberger was sort of the grandfather of the right to be forgotten in Europe in the late 80s and 90s. He was one of the forerunners of the internet and wrote a lot of code to protect computers in the early days of the internet, and has since then sort of become this pioneer and front runner in for the right to be forgotten. So there's that, and then also in the United States there was a Supreme Court ruling, Sidis v. FR Publishing Corporation, and what that was a young man who was a virtuoso as a child. He was a child prodigy, I don't know in what, but he wanted to live his adult life in relative obscurity, and the New Yorker, it's funny that we come back around there, but the New Yorker wrote a story about him as a child prodigy while he was an adult. He did not want the accolades that came with that story and therefore sued successfully the FR Publishing Corporation, which was running the New Yorker at the time, for the right to basically be forgotten, for them to repeal that article. So there's some precedent there in the United States. I'm sure that there are many, many others. This is just on sort of a precursory reading of some of the literature that I have done. I, of course, encourage you to read as much as you can. Please stay tuned to this channel. It's not just going to be me every time. I'm trying to get a hold of many other debate coaches, and I feel like we got a really strong response as far as people wanting to help, people who are excited about this channel. Hopefully you are too. and we look forward to helping you guys out. So thanks.